Solely my perspective and everything that I've learned as far as the matrix that we live in and how the matrix we live in is the source of all violence and of all separation that we experience in this reality. I learned how perspective means everything, and our perspective on what we experience in this reality literally shapes our entire experience. And that perspective is rooted in your belief system. And this belief system has been cultivated in many different foundational ways. We all come into this world as screaming newborn babies that have no bias, no belief system. We come into this world pure consciousness, pure curiosity, pure love, unconditional love. Our parents do what they know best for us. They do what they can with what they have to help prepare us for the reality that we might encounter. So they tell us who we need to be, who not to be. If they give us a name, they teach us what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. And those beliefs that they impose onto us has also been propagated from their parents' programming of them. Through generation upon generation, you get an evolution of a belief system. The way people perceive their reality is rooted in their beliefs. So if you were raised to believe that people like you don't get opportunity, then you won't see opportunity. So you will perceive in your reality that it's true. We don't get opportunities. And you will continuously see your beliefs perpetuated in your reality and in your experience. So that's why it becomes true for you. And what might be true for you is not necessarily true for someone else. And what's true for them might not be true for you, but everyone's experience is valid. There is an issue that lies within taking your reality as fundamental truth. So maybe what I'm going to talk about today is the illusion versus the truth. And I'm not saying that what I'm going to tell you right now is the truth, but I will tell you what is the illusion and what I think might be the truth. I think I need to give a little bit of a backstory without, getting into my identity and who I am. That's a part of what I'm going to tell you is an illusion, right? I could tell you what my name is. I could tell you the schooling I've been through, where my parents were born, where I was born, because that's a part of my experience. That is my experience. But instead I'm going to just shorthand it to my awakening, to give you a perspective of how I got to where I am now, how I got to the understanding that I have today. It really began as a spiritual and scientific journey. I started to get really, really curious about a lot of big philosophical questions, like what is life? What is reality? What is real, right? What is this physical world? I've heard that this is a simulation, that we live in a simulation, that we live in a matrix, that we are spiritual beings having an experience that we created and constructed for ourselves for the expansion of our own consciousness. I've heard these things. I then started to, obviously I went on a whole spiritual journey learning about, the non-material world, understanding reality outside of science. There's so many ancient texts that talk about this reality outside of materialistic science. In science, we deem things as true when we could find hard evidence of that truth. And empirical evidence, things that we can measure and get a number assigned to that. But when you think about things like love, right? A mother's love for her child. How do we measure love, right? Is there a scale and a number that we can attest to how much a mother loves her own child? What does that love feel like? What is love? How do we describe love? Where does love come from? Like the feeling of love, the feeling of being loved. giving love, receiving love. These are things we can't put into words, but we all experience it. There are many things just like this, like feelings. Like we can understand things that are happening in our bodies and in our brains that could be contributing to the experience we're having. But why we have feelings and sensations, no one has the answer to. That is the hard problem of consciousness. And so I got really, really deep into the research and the science of consciousness. I've listened to all the big names that you could think of in the field of consciousness research. When I started doing research on consciousness in conjunction with already developing connection with spirituality, I started to notice large percentage of quantum physicists and even some neuroscientists, cognitive researchers, well-renowned scientists coming to the conclusion that consciousness is fundamental, that there is not something that's happening in the brain in which consciousness emerges. When you look at near-death experiences, you would see that even if you don't have any brain activity or any heart activity, you would be pronounced dead, right? There should not be a conscious experience, yet there are people that have conscious experiences when their brain has stopped and when their heart has stopped, and they have memory. Sometimes they come back with talents and skills that they did not have prior, or they come back with some sort of knowledge that they did not have prior. There's things that we cannot explain with materialism. Even with materialism, the moment you make a measurement, it's no longer the truth. You have captured a forced outcome. And the double slit experiment in physics is obviously the best experiment to explain that. And so obviously I can't get into detail with every single thing that I've learned in this video, at least. But I want you to understand that where I'm at today with this idea of spirituality and consciousness and reality is that this experience is rooted in my beliefs. Everything around me is not really here. I'm creating this and I'm projecting it for myself to experience. And that on the quantum level, what makes up this bottle makes me up. And trying to understand, why am I having a conscious experience and this bottle isn't, is a great question. Why do some people think that plants might not be conscious and that animals might not be conscious, like dogs? We just don't understand them fully. There's a really famous book of what it's like to be a bat. And as scientists, we can do all this research on animal behavior, seeing how they react to things, what they do on instinct, but yet we will never know what it is truly like to be a dog. We will never ever know what it is truly like to be a bottle, to be a rock. Yet we assume they're not having a conscious experience because they're not doing what we as humans do. I agree that the experience of a bottle and of a dog and of a human is different. I think the way we perceive our experience is different. But on the fundamental level, we are all one. I truly believe, and doing the digging in consciousness research, neuroscience, quantum physics, and then obviously reading, ancient texts, and even some of religion, I've come to the understanding that we are all one. There's a great line in one of System of a Down's songs where the singer, Serj Tankian, he says, "We're one in the river and we're one again after the fall." Imagine a waterfall. And at the top of the waterfall, you have the river, right? So the river is flowing as a body of water. And then you have the waterfall, and then at the bottom of the waterfall is again a river, a continuous body of water. So we are one in the river. You cannot make out each individual droplet of water because it is just one big body of water. Once you get to the waterfall, you are a droplet. You know how the waterfall is shh. And there's all these water droplets that are each individually falling. Our life is that fall. And after life, we become one again. Same thing as like if you think that, we are a droplet in the ocean, but we are the entire ocean in a droplet. A wave in the ocean could be a manifestation of the whole, right? The wave is a part of the ocean. You cannot separate the two, but the wave can have its own distinct experience, and it could be perceived in a distinct way apart from the entire ocean. A lot of what Dr. Federico Fagin talks about is this part-whole system. Think of the egg that created your body, that created you. That egg has the genome, the DNA, that makes your entire body. Cells begin to differentiate. And within every single cell, aside from red blood cells, you have the genome in every single cell. So your liver cells have the same genome as your heart cells, as your pancreatic beta cells, as your breast cells, as your prostate cells, as your skin cells. All of your cells have the exact same genome, yet they get to participate as its own differentiated cell type. There are certain genes that are going to be expressed in a specific cell type. If I took your entire body and I blended it up in a mixer and I dissociated your whole entire body into single cells, I captured the gene expression in every single cell in your body. Through the use of algorithms, I would be able to figure out which cell was a cardiac cell in your heart, which cell was a beta cell in your pancreas, epithelial cell in your prostate, because specific genes are turned on in certain cell types and off in other cell types. And we can figure out the identity of cells, even though they all came from one egg and that they all contain the information that made your entire body. So it's a part-whole system, that every part of you has the power of the whole. And also, like, your cell types, how they become or terminally differentiated as a specific identity, like an epithelial cell in your prostate, the way it became that was through programming. Literally programming based off of the environment that the cell was in. I'm explaining this because we can use these things as metaphors. Understand how we are also a part of a part-whole system. That imagine each of us is a terminally differentiated cell of something much bigger than us. Your liver has no idea of the entire being that it's a part of. All of our cells are communicating with each other, like literally signaling to each other, communicating with each other all the time in ways that we don't even fully understand. If we were a part-whole system as well, then we have the information of the whole. We have the power of the whole system. Who we become and who we identify as is based off of programming. I understand that me and you are no different. The same way me and this bottle are no different. We are the same. We are of the same energy. So imagine one big giant pool of energy, one big ocean of consciousness. And that consciousness is having this experience and having the experience of literally everything around me. The way this bottle is experiencing when we record this video is personal to the bottle. But that information that this bottle is getting and the information that I'm getting from this conversation and what you're getting from this conversation is all going to the source, right? The source consciousness that we all are connected to. You cannot remove the drop from the river. You could not remove the wave from the ocean. You cannot remove our consciousness from the whole consciousness that we are a part of. Since we are just the same energy, that means that everything is an illusion, right? There's an illusion of separation, of difference, for the sake of experience and expansion of our consciousness. For you to have your own name, your own physical experience, your own perspective, your own experience, your own language, your own culture, your own beliefs, your own everything, then we can have expansion because we can have conversation, we can learn from each other, we could share with each other. But all of the information, whether you have a positive or a negative experience, all of that gets uploaded to this source consciousness. And that this big body source of consciousness is expanding and evolving constantly, infinitely. It makes up everything on the earth, the entire earth itself, all of space, every planet, the entire universe, to infinity. Every species that could possibly live on any other planet, we are one. Quantum physics has shifted its perspective on reality, on physical reality. You know, when you think of the double slit experiment, you don't think of a single electron and what that single electron is going to do, right? Although that's how we might think of it. You know, you're shooting electrons. You have to think of a field of electrons, that it's not, nothing exists as one thing. This is just how we get to perceive it. That it is a free will choice for it to be perceived like this. In this field of electrons, that one electron in a superposition, it could be in infinite positions. It could be here, it could be there, it could be here, it could be there. And when we make a measurement, there is a decision that gets made as to where that electron is. And it's a decision of the field, right? It's the same way. If you think of an ocean, it is one big ocean, one big field of electrons. And a wave in the ocean is like the manifestation of an electron. When I see a wave in the ocean and I'm with my friend, I'm like, oh my God, hey, you have to see this wave. You have to see this wave. The moment we turn back, it's gone, right? It's a constant flow of life, of consciousness. And sure, I could take a picture and I'd be like, this is where the wave was at this time. It looked just like this, and I could paint it and I could do whatever with it, but it's gone. It's already been transformed, but it had its experience, it had its life, and it gets recycled. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And so, you know, you can apply this to your life, of course, and think about superposition of your life. Thinking about time. Time itself is an illusion. You know, the past, present, future. There really is no past, present, future. We understand we only experience the present moment, right? The now, right now. When I think of the past, if I think of a memory of me, like at the zoo as a kid, I'm experiencing it in the present moment. When I think of a future event, maybe I have an interview coming up for work, I experience it in the present moment. Every timeline, every possibility, every position exists in this field. And it's all accessible to you. And we know that our intention shapes reality. If you don't believe that you could do it, then you won't do it. We've seen that with random number generators. If humans put an intention on which way they want to push the number generator, that we can have an actual effect just with our intention. So there's something supernatural. And there's been a lot of supernatural things that have been reported for essentially all of humanity. Telepathy, remote viewing, things that have been used by governments all over the world. You know, the idea of projecting consciousness, seeing reality, experiencing reality, getting information without physically being somewhere, being able to telepathically communicate with animals, with other humans. If you've seen the telepathy tapes, these kids and adults, they meet up somewhere and they get to talk to each other. And they have a different perspective on life and on death. And even now I have a different perspective on life and death. Because when you look at near-death experiencers, they all have very similar stories. Essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is that what we are currently experiencing is an illusion. We create this experience for ourselves. And we create the illusion in order for us to experience each other. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we come into this world as babies with no bias, no belief system currently in place. We're pure consciousness. And our parents program us, our educational system programs us, our friends and society and social media program us. They give us a name, they give us values, they give us opinions, They tell us what's good and what's bad, who to be, who not to be, who to listen to, who to obey, what matters, what to value, what's possible, what's not possible, what's real, what's truth, what's not truth. All of these things are programs. You have to understand that as humans, for us to have an experience and share experience, we need to put things into words, into language. We've created language, and with language we have to create definitions. We can all agree that this is a bottle, right? We have agreed that we can call this a bottle. This is also a bottle. They look different, but they're both bottles. This is not a bottle. This is a cup. And so could we define a bottle as something that holds liquid or holds a substance? No, because is this a bottle? This is a cup. And although it's holding liquid just like this is a cup and this is a bottle. And it's not based on the material. Maybe it's based on the fact that this has a cap. But there are other things that hold substances like liquids, like solids, with caps that are also not bottles. So we have very refined definitions of things so that we can have detailed storytelling. Aside from bottles and cups, we've defined ourselves. We have defined what is life, what is not life. Some people do believe that plants and trees are living and that they are conscious. We can agree that dogs are alive, but are they conscious? How do we define consciousness? Does it mean that it is truth? No, it is a language. Just so I understand what we are referring to. That doesn't mean that that's what... Does this know it's a bottle? Does the dog know it's a bottle? No. Us as humans, we agree on these constructs. So now let's get to human identity. Religion, for example. There are hundreds of different religions. And when you come into this world as a baby, you don't have a religion. You're likely given a religion because you didn't choose it, right? Your parents chose it for you. Because in order for you to choose something, you would have had to study and research all of the hundreds of religions to actually make a choice, that's unbiased. I'm just using religion as an example, but we could talk about even countries. We are all just living on Earth, the United States. And in the United States, we have Texas and California and Illinois and Maine and Washington and all these different states. People that live in these different states are slightly different when you look at the entire nation. And when you compare this country to that country, there's cultures, they're different. But at the end of the day, it's all land that's on Earth. Is Earth living and conscious? What do you think? Based off of how we've defined it, what do you think? And we cannot take these definitions as truth. They are constructs. They are ways of talking. And so what ends up happening with us humans is we take these constructs as absolute truth. So-and-so, their name is this, their religion is that, their country is this, their culture is that, and that they are different from me. That could be beautiful on its own. Yet there's a lot of propaganda, distortion within these human constructs from the matrix, the system that we live in, for control. All of violence stems from these human constructs because although there are different religions and there's different countries and there's different cultures, once people start to define themselves as those things, then they get away from the fact that we are all just humans living on Earth. I can zoom out even farther. We are a speck of dust floating around in space. Like, we are nothing. Yet we've created such chaos for ourselves. Every single war, every single genocide, every single atrocity to humanity stems from people taking these human constructs as truth, believing in this illusion, right? This is an illusion. The bottle is an illusion. I understand that we are all one, that there is no right and wrong. There is no good and bad. Those are all perspectives. They're all opinions. They're not truth. They're stories. And there's a lot of beauty in storytelling. But at the end of the day, it's a story. And we have to let go of these constructs because what the Matrix has done is it has taken the constructs and it has distorted them to separate us. As I mentioned before, every single war and genocide stems from, land, territory, religion, power conflicts. It's just crazy to me to think that we murder innocent people, not even thinking about the land we're destroying when we do this and the animals that we're destroying and disturbing when we do these things, but we are killing civilians because of human constructs, when that is what the system wants. Here's where we get to the Matrix. The Matrix is a belief system, and that belief system has been created to keep us separated and to make us violent. If we all understood that we are all one, then why would I ever hurt you? I'm hurting myself because that's me. Why would I ever hurt a dog? That's me, right? We're all one consciousness, one conscious being. If we really understood that I am that dog, and I have compassion for that dog, and I understand and I feel for its experience. If you went through everything that person went through, you would be them. You would be the same. We all are shaped by our environment and our programming. What you consume, what you are surrounded by, you become that. To have a sense of compassion is literally all we need. That's why love is always the answer. Because when you understand that we were all babies, every single human that exists was once a baby, and we all came into this world. We didn't get to choose who our parents were. We didn't get to choose where we grew up, the country we were born into, the religion we were taught, the schooling that we went through, the education system. Were you in poverty? Were you abundant in money? Who we become as adults is highly influenced by our childhood and our childhood trauma and the things that we went through, the ways that we were neglected or the ways that we were loved. Those influence who we are today. Most people have not processed their trauma. They suppress their trauma and they carry their trauma within them, stored in organs. And that's a whole nother story of talking about emotionally stored trauma and how that can cause physical diseases. Again, it's not taught. We are not taught to process our trauma. We emotionally heal our trauma. And so then we grow up as an adults with all of this pain and all of this hurt. And then we look at ourselves as different from those around us, and we judge ourselves, we judge others, and we hate ourselves and we hate others, and we are constantly in competition with the world. When you realize the world is you, and you should love everything and everyone, because if you had grown up the way that they did, you would be the same. I think one of the best ways to think about this is when you think of yourself as a child. So you sit here today, whatever age you are, wherever you are, close your eyes and think about yourself when you were maybe 10 years old. Imagine seeing your 10-year-old self. What were they doing? Were they maybe drawing? Were they playing video games? Were they watching a movie? Were they digging in the dirt? Were parents around? Were siblings around? Was music playing? Was food being cooked? What did it smell like? What did it feel like? See yourself sitting there and realize that they grow up to be you. That kid is gonna grow up to be who you are today. And that kid is innocent. That kid has no idea what's ahead of them. And all you can do is love that kid. You tell yourself that I love you because you're doing the best that you can. And maybe you weren't shown the right things, and you weren't taught the right way. But I love you and I understand you, and every right and every wrong that you've done, I get it because I was you. That's what we need to do as humans, is have compassion for each other, because we were all just kids one day, kids that were hurt, kids that were neglected. We all have trauma, and trauma gets passed down from generation to generation. Literally, every woman is born with all of her eggs. And all throughout life, her eggs could be exposed to every single thing that she experiences in her life. Same thing with men. Although they produce sperm every single day, the emotion and the energy in which they produce that in gets stored. And so you get that genome and this genome, and that creates your genome. And it literally takes all generational trauma, all ancestral trauma, all of it gets passed down to you. Yet we are still not taught how to process our trauma. It's very easy for humans to get mad at each other, to yell at each other, to hate each other, to overlook the compassion, to forget about compassion, to forget about love. Strangers are scary. They literally teach us stranger danger. They tell us to prepare for the worst. They teach us that people are crazy and people are disgusting. And I'm not saying that these things aren't true, that there aren't people that are crazy. But you have to understand that they're not crazy because they wanted to be. That's who they became. And you are who you became to be. And you have to have compassion and love for everyone. How could you blame someone for their upbringing? How could you blame someone for the country they were born in, for the values that they have, when there is no right and there is no wrong? These are constructs. Again, we created these things for language. And people end up defining themselves by their country, right? The whole entire war in Yugoslavia was over religion and nationalism. What was once a country with a lot of mixed religions and cultures, these republics wanted to become independent and more pure, one culture and one religion. And so what they did was genocide came out of that. Thousands of people died to ethnically cleanse territory. How could we do this to one another? And the thing is, those that push us to make these decisions, there are real humans that had to shoot and kill all of those people. And they were real humans. They had to be shot and thrown into giant mass graves or go through concentration camps, get stripped from their families, take all their belongings and have them burned in front of them. There's so much crazy things, even if you think of the Holocaust. Even if you think about what's happening right now, there is so much crazy shit happening. And when you do your research on how to get to genocide, you understand that it's all programming, with propaganda. And you research the Holocaust, the people that had to first kill the first, Jewish people, those Nazi soldiers couldn't even watch what was happening, because people's heads and brains were getting blasted. How, as a human, could you watch that? What's interesting is there's no evidence that there was any punishment if they didn't do it. So how did we get to people being disgusted from heads getting blown off to mass genocide where millions of people were murdered? Civilians, women, children, men, fathers, brothers, sisters, because of conditioning. Because people in power have created distortion and conspiracy for you to buy into and to take as truth, when we all need to really fucking realize that we are one. There's no such thing as Muslim and Christian and Catholic and Jewish. They're constructs and they're beautiful. And there's no such thing as Serbian and Bosnian, German and Polish. They're all constructs. We are just humans living on Earth. So I've attacked this problem of violence from many different angles, from science and from spirituality and from ideology. I heard a woman, I actually don't know her name, I just heard her speak for the first time. She studied all the major religions, and this was her conclusion. She said that there is no separation between religion and politics. Politics and governments and political parties need God to justify injustices. When you use God to justify oppression, class oppression, race oppression, oppression of poor people, when you use God, then everyone is afraid to criticize. Atheists could even argue that there is a freedom of choice, right? That at the end of the day, you get to choose your own religion. But as I mentioned before, there really was no choice. You were likely told what to believe. There's no way you fully got to research every religion to actually choose your own. Leaders, whenever they want to pass law, whenever they want to go to war, maintain power, control people, they say, God wants this. This is the divine order, right? This needed to happen. That you need to do this because God, this is the role that God made for you. And people don't want to disagree with God. For example, like if you think of slavery in the United States, Christian slaveholders would use Bible verses to justify owning other human beings. Or the idea that, women can't lead because it's God's design for men to lead. They're all illusions. System and the systems, the layers of this fucking onion that we live in, pretend to be about truth and about love and order. But really, underneath it all, it's all about power. The people who have power are the people that have money. A lot of money. I'm not talking millionaires. I'm talking like trillionaires, billionaires. They control the world that we live in. They control the propaganda. This entire globe, every war, again, is an illusion. People die because companies make a lot of money from war. Even if you think about the pandemic, I'm not going to say much about the pandemic, but what we could take from it is that big corporations made the most money they've ever made, ever. Times in chaos where there's a lot of freaking profit, and I don't think it's on accident at all. A lot of these things are strategically planned out so that people's pockets get bigger, and it's not your pockets and it's not my pockets. But here's the thing. We live in a world that's engineered. We might call this freedom. And you might think that when you're financially free, like let's say you become a millionaire, right? Millionaires are popping up left and right. There's 16-year-olds that are millionaires. You might think that you are free, but really you're just in a prettier cage. Your personal freedom does not mean universal liberation. I don't think that you could be free in a deeply enslaved world. The system will remain. Like, again, to bring up slavery, when activists wanted to abolish slavery and they brought it to the surface and they were able to actually abolish racist slavery, it still never impacted the system because there are more slaves today than ever before. Racism took the blame, right? The matrix, the system, the people were like, okay, fine. We won't do it to only Black people then. We'll do it to everyone. People think that, there's this illusion that now since we've abolished slavery of specifically Black people, which was racist, right? They were oppressed. People think that since today, I can, go to school for what I want to study, and then I can get a job based off of like the degree that I got and the talent and skill that I've obtained. And now, I get to choose where I work and I'm free. Like I get to do whatever I want to do. No, you are not free because you need to work a job. You need to make income in order to pay your bills, in order to survive, right? So you're forced, and most people end up choosing something, out of survival, out of necessity. And most people don't even know what they would do if they didn't have to work for money. An amazing movie that I think everybody should watch is called Reflections. It takes place in the future where historians are looking back at what we live in currently and saying that was like the worst humanity has ever been. And they couldn't believe that we functioned in a society like this because the way we live is not sustainable for humanity. And in this matrix of overconsumption and overproduction, right? Every single company thinking of how can we make the next big thing, the next big product. They're creating problems to manufacture solutions for problems that you didn't even know that you had. constantly about expansion and growth. And we are constantly stripping our earth of resources left and right. The earth that we need to survive. Like literally the air that we breathe, we are polluting. And then we have disease. And then we get sick and then we die. The soil that grows the food that we eat is polluted. Is no more nutrition anymore. That's why we have to supplement. Right? Like we are hurting ourselves because we are the earth. If we keep going, the earth will shake us off. And the reason why we keep doing this is because people don't realize that we are one. It's a belief that's not taught. It is not currently taught because the people in power have figured out a way to use spirituality and religion and these human constructs to distort it into propaganda and to make you hate one another. Even when you look back at history, when we had a boom in technology, a boom in manufacturing, where like things could be automated, right? Like robots can do things for us. Instead of humans getting like laid off of their labor, like instead of like working the 5-day work week, if it could be automated with technology, then humans should have only had to work for like 2 days out of the week. Like we should have been let loose and you would have more time to pursue your hobbies, more time to enrich your social life, to do the things that you actually want to do in life, to have the time to think about your future, to be with family, to do the thing that you were meant to actually experience. Like our whole life is our job. Instead, what happened was humans worked more than ever because they were like, okay, so now this could be automated. What more could we be doing to expand even more? Right? And so there were more jobs and more people working. I've always been focused on competition. There are thousands of different vitamin D supplements on the market. Everyone's saying why theirs is better than their competitors. Where do you source it? What's in it? What does it look like? What does it taste like? You know, how many do you get? What is the dosage? All of these different things. And it's like, how does one choose? Oh, well, I can't choose. Why don't I just create my own vitamin D supplement in the way that I think is the best for people? And then I sell that to everyone. And then boom, like you're buying into the system again, right? You're contributing to the system again. We should be focused on degrowth, right? Instead of companies getting bigger, creating a bunch of unnecessary things that end up in landfills. My Apple Watch can't even hold its charge anymore, right? So I need to buy another one. Like these things are manufactured to not last. So how about we think about how we can manufacture things that could actually last, that are less detrimental to the earth, like using our science to actually advance, not further mine and strip the earth of all of its resources. Things are just going to end up in the ocean, end up in the landfills. It's like, have you ever seen a landfill in real life? No. Where are they? Right? These things remain hidden so that you don't actually realize what we're doing. But now we have wildfires all over the place. We have hurricanes and tsunamis and like all these natural disasters all over the world. And like even in Chicago, we're getting the wildfire pollution from Canada. And now we're breathing in unhealthy air. That gets into the water system. We really need to wake up to how this is not sustainable for our own life. We are making ourselves sick by feeding into this system that doesn't even value you. It values the pockets of these motherfuckers. So if we focused on degrowth, then there would be one vitamin D supplement brand, and it would be the best, the cleanest for all, because everyone would take the same thing. It's not like this socioeconomic hierarchy anymore, right? Like imagine money didn't exist. People didn't have to work for their money. Like there were things that were guaranteed for everyone, like healthcare, food, shelter, education. And you don't have to work for those necessities. People would only be doing things for the sake of doing it, for the love of doing it. Someone who's always wanted to be a drummer, instead of like working in tech because that's what you went to school for, you can be a drummer and come out with music that people love. You know, like we're creators, we are artists. If maybe your whole life you haven't been given the chance to create, that's no accident. Because when we create things, we unite. And then when we unite and we wake up, the system gets weaker. And that's what we want. We want people to wake up and to keep creating. So if everyone's work was out of your own will, right? No one's forcing you to do any work. So you choose to do what you love. And because you love doing it, you're going to be better at it. You're going to be more productive, more efficient, more creative. We would come out with better things. As a vitamin D researcher, that's one of the things I do. I do vitamin D research for cancer. If we had all of the most important vitamin D researchers, the most passionate vitamin D researchers, they should be the ones working on the best vitamin D supplement. They should be doing the research on it and figuring out what's the best for everyone. And again, since there's no socioeconomic status because there's no more money, that means there's no one richer and there's no one poorer. There's equality. And maybe it could be a system based off of like how much you contribute is how much you get or something. I don't know how the system would really work. Again, Interreflections is a movie that talks about this. It's no longer that the best product would be only accessible to those that have the money to afford it. It would be accessible to everyone. And so we understand, for example, that vitamin D is necessary for everyone. It is a hormone. It's not even a vitamin. It's necessary for everybody to have sufficient levels of it. Only have, let's say, the best supplement available to those with money, or maybe the best treatment for whatever disease only available to those with money, and only insurance to cover those treatments only available to those with money, then yeah, you have population control, where the people that are the most sick are the ones that don't have access to the right healthcare, to insurance, to cleaner foods, to cleaner water, to being in environments that are less stressful. You know, financial stress is a huge contributor to physical disease. And so like literally we could prevent cancer. We could prevent all diseases, treating everyone equally, because we know what drives these diseases. There's hallmarks of cancer, and all of it is systemic rooted. For example, microbiome. Your microbiome is shifted by your diet. How would the diet of someone who lives in poverty differ from someone who's a millionaire? Right? What do they have access to, and how are those things different? And how could their microbiome and thus their metabolism be completely different? It's not surprising that those are in poverty that experience high chronic stress, financial stress, high levels of cortisol, high inflammation within their body, don't have insurance, don't have access to healthcare, can't eat clean foods out of convenience because they have to work so much to barely make enough money, living paycheck to paycheck to support their family or support themselves, to have a place to live, which isn't even nice. It's probably in a neighborhood with crime, so they can't even step outside to get vitamin D. They stay inside in hopes that they don't get shot, depending on where they live. These people, of course, are going to be more likely to develop aggressive diseases, like aggressive cancers, and they can't get the treatments for it. This is so unethical, and there's no morals here. These are the people that need it the most. The people that are constantly facing injustice, constantly oppressed. They're the ones that get the most impacted. But they're the cogs in this machine. Right? Like, we have to continue to pull this lever because there's no choice. There is a choice, but they feel that there's no choice because, again, it's a belief system. So at the root of everything, I'm not trying to dismiss any trauma or any reality that people face, right? I'm saying that it's very fucking true, but it's on a systemic level done on purpose. Everyone really needs to ask themselves, why are you doing what you're doing, right? The job that you currently have, why are you working it? Is it because you have to? Is it because you want to? Or are you justifying and being like, well, yeah, I actually do enjoy my job. I make enough money. Like, what would you be doing if you didn't have to work for money? Ask yourself those questions. And ask yourself, why am I not pursuing that? Do I think that I can't make money doing it? Right? Because if you go online, you go on YouTube, I guarantee you there's someone making millions of dollars doing exactly what you would do or what you would want to do. And it's a belief system put into place saying that, like, the only way to be successful is if you go to school and you get educated and, you know, you get trained to be a worker and then you become a tool. Like, you're no longer even a human to someone. You were just a tool, a business tool for someone. Like, even if you think about celebrities are literally tools. Like, if you think about musicians, right? And they're going to hold a concert at a huge arena. That musician isn't the one making the big bucks. All they're doing is they're drawing in people to the arena. And whoever owns the arena is really making the money, because they make money on all the food that gets sold. They'll make money on all the alcohol that gets sold there. Don't even get me started on alcohol. Like literally, they've marketed poison for you to drink to damage your liver, which is probably the most important organ in your body, that filters literally everything you eat, and you get all your nutrition and metabolizes all your micronutrients. They've made it seem like this like social thing and that it's fun. Like they've literally marketed poison, bro, and people think it's fun. That's what I'm saying. Like they even marketed cigarettes as a way to cure stress back in the day. But yeah, it's the arena that's making money off of all the alcohol, all the food that gets sold there, probably all the tickets that get sold to all the people. So like the musicians like barely making any money, but they're the ones creating the art, right? Like everything is such an illusion. Question everything. Question your identity. Question what you value. Question why you do what you do every day. When you purchase something, are you purchasing it because you've been advertised and marketed to in the most perfect fucking way? Do you really need a new pair of pants? Like you have 6 pairs of the same wash blue jeans. Do you really need another one? They want you to keep buying, and in order for you to buy the new pair of $120 light wash blue jeans that you already have something that looks like that, in order for you to buy it, you gotta work. So you can't call off, you can't take the week off, you can't take vacation. You gotta work, and you gotta work most of your day, and you work most of your day to the point where you don't even have the energy to pursue anything else. You can't pursue any of your hobbies because your weekends are used probably for drinking and going out. You're constantly being conditioned, constantly being programmed to make decisions that keep this system alive. One, we're moving in a trajectory that does not sustain human life. So we need to wake the fuck up now. We need to always continuously speak up about these things, continuously educate ourselves, do our research, look at the history. Why are things named certain things? Even if you think about like money, why do we call it currency, right? Because it's like a current. Like you need to keep your money moving. People are financially illiterate because again, the system that was created to educate you was created to educate you how to be a 9-to-5 worker for someone else, how to obey authority. It didn't teach you how to become financially free on your own. They don't teach you how you need to make money for you so that you have passive income, so that you don't need to work, so that you can retire yourself. How you can, transcend the matrix and become financially free. But as I mentioned before, it's just a prettier cage. You're not actually free. Only the very few at the top that are free, that control everything. Always something happening underneath what we see. Everything's orchestrated. It's all an illusion. Like they don't teach you about what foods you should be eating. They don't teach you about health, about finances. They don't teach you how to emotionally process your trauma because they want you to buy into these belief systems and to perpetuate it in your reality. So the reason why you see violence on every corner is because you're told to not trust others. You're told that we live in a violent world. There's certain groups of people that you should be scared of. Crazy because I came, when you approach it from like an underground standpoint, then you realize that we're all one, you can't tell me anything. You can't tell me that people are any different, that someone's better than someone else. Like, bro, we are literally all the same. It doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, what language you speak, what you look like. We are all the same, and we're here to share our experience, to love one another, to have compassion for another, and to thrive with the earth. But we've come to such chaos because there was an opportunity for those that rule, and they took it and they created the most beautiful system. Like genuinely, it's so fascinating because every time I turn the corner, I'm like, wow, that's another way that they get us to do these things. And it's like, and people continue to do it and they defend it. They figured out how to get the system to defend itself. So that's why the system never collapses. Because if I say, okay, no one go to work tomorrow, right? People will still go to work tomorrow because they're like, well, you can't guarantee me that this is going to work, so I need to go to work because I need to pay my bills, and no. And it's like, and now you're threatening this and you're going to create more chaos and more war and more this, when you need to just shut up and like go get a job and just be quiet. That's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to say. So I thank you if you stayed for this long. This is really just me spitting out my thoughts. I know this video is all over the place. I could talk for hours and hours about every single topic. I'll give you a little background. I'm getting a PhD in cancer biology. I study the role of racial disparities in prostate cancer and how vitamin D deficiency is contributing to more aggressive prostate cancers in African American men. I understand health and I understand disease, and I understand how the choices that we make every single day compound. And a lot of my generation think that what they do today doesn't matter. That they're young, they could drink, they could eat like shit because their body could take it. That's not true. My mission is just to help share my perspective, share what I've learned, share my own research. Again, none of this shit is true, like true, but it's allowed me to shift my experience, my life, find my purpose, find my passion, fuel it, live it. Think at the core of all of this is the belief system. And if we don't shift our perspective on what we experience in this world, we will continue to experience this violence and this chaos until, like, literally, like I said, we either blow ourselves up because of war and violence, or the earth will literally shake us off and we will die. In one way or another, we need to wake up. The things that they make us think are normal and are common are not normal. Like with your health, you know, like you shouldn't feel tired all the time. You shouldn't feel tired after you eat. Shouldn't be getting cramps for your period. You shouldn't be getting bloated. A lot to learn, and I know it seems overwhelming. And it just bothers me that there's people, you know, the people that I mentioned that are like really my target audience, and I need to figure out how to get to them. You know, people that are facing injustice and oppression every single day. I want to understand how I can shift their perspective and help educate them so that they understand like where the illusion is. They're in a position to make a different choice, because again, you know, working on yourself, doing the soul work is free. But I also understand that people don't have the time or the energy to do the soul work, nor are they educated or trained or given access to tools to help them do that. You know, as much as I think that like YouTube is free, YouTube is for all, like things are all online, there are still people that might not have access to the internet, might not have access to the library, might not be able to leave their house, might not be able to pay for Wi-Fi. And it's something that I'm passionate about and I would love to do. And so I'm figuring out how to do that. If anyone has any suggestions on how, you know, we can make changes on the community level. I don't have the same experience as everyone. Although I grew up as a daughter of war and genocide refugees, and I live in a country that I probably wouldn't have been born in if it wasn't for the war that was over human constructs. I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have this experience that I have. I always say that I'm blessed and I'm grateful and I'm privileged to be in a position where I have access to what I have access to. And my voice is a privilege and I will never shut up. This isn't your fault. Your trauma is not you. You are not your body. You are not your trauma. The system makes it feel like there aren't good people out there. There aren't people that want to help, that you are alone when you're not. And I feel for other people. And even though I can't imagine what it is that others have gone through, I don't have to imagine it. Because no matter what it is you went through, no one deserves this matrix that we live in. Like literally nobody deserves to be in any position of oppression and injustice, because it violates the idea that we are all one. To oppress people and to cleanse, do ethnic cleansing and sterilization of countries because of these constructs hurts my soul. All I want is for people to question everything, question what you believe in, ask yourself why you believe in these things, how were they introduced to you, How are they marketed to you? How are they advertised to you? What did you have access to? What did you not have access to? Really do the deep digging, do the soul work. Please do the trauma work. Heal yourself, love your inner child. We are literally just children walking around trying to be mature, trying to raise other children, and we need to do this in a better way that's sustainable for humanity, because currently our trajectory is leading towards destruction of us and our earth. I feel a huge shift coming, and of course with all shifts in humanity is chaos. You cannot rebuild a system without literally obliterating and breaking the current system. So the shift will not be pretty. It's not going to be clean, but it's necessary. Like, holy shit, is it necessary? Do I know what it looks like? No. Do I know how we would get there? No. But before we can even talk about solutions and being productive, people need to wake up first, because I can't do it alone. And I know a lot of the people that I end up targeting with my content ends up being people that are also already woken up. The people that really hold the foundation of this system are the people that have not yet woken up. All I do is I think about how can I wake up the people that aren't woken up in a way that doesn't dismiss what they've been through. Again, it's all love, and it's really hard to tell someone that what they've experienced is because of their perspective, that there's parts of it that they couldn't control, that they could experience anything else when their truth is that they can't. Trying to show them that there's other things that are possible when all they've experienced is trauma and negativity and injustice. So I'm working on it, and I don't know yet how to really do it, but this is how I'm starting, is by posting this content. I'm on TikTok as well, and I'm trying to push myself to be here on YouTube, because clearly you see how long this video has been. I cannot say all of this in 10-minute snippets on TikTok. Ignore me, ignore who I am. I'm insignificant. I'm literally nothing. I'm nobody. The mission I'm on, I can't do this alone. So I need you, and tackle this as a group. Like, if we could be coordinated to do malicious, disgusting things to humans as groups, then we could do amazing, beautiful things as groups. I think I'm gonna stop here. I love you so much. I'll see you.